Hey, I'm Chris Shaw with Homeland Title Settlement. I am the business development director here. Basically, for me, I'm always out and about trying to meet new people to implement an easier process for clientele. Throughout this process, I feel like people do get lost in things, and that's where I come into play to fix it. So that's where I am on the title side.
A lot of our goals today are going to be to ask Chris some questions that you guys may not ever really see or interact with on the side of the title things. So, Chris, thanks for sitting down with us today.
Absolutely, I'm happy to be here.
What would you say is one of the most common misconceptions about what you do that you run into?
Oh,
Don't worry, the pause is good. Ed.
yeah, no, there's a lot of them. On our side, it's always, why title? Why do you need to close with somebody? We have for sale by owners all the time that are like, well, why do I need an attorney or a title company to close? And your title is held at the county, so or the city at that point. So everything from there, I feel like you always need a closing attorney or a title settlement agency. That's where we come into play. You come in and sit down. We basically exchange hands of title. So basically, going from seller to a new buyer, or even from a current relative to a new addition to a family, anything like that. So I feel like the most misconception of that is sitting on our side and just you have to have a closing attorney or a title company to be able to do this process. You can't just close it on your own. And I feel like people these days feel like, why am I spending X amount of dollars and needing this? So
Perfect. So, as opposed to trying to piecemeal all this together myself, I'm going to save a lot of time and headache
yeah,
just sticking with a title company.
yeah. So I mean, and that's on both of these things. I think you can. There is the misconception of both of these where it's like title company and attorney. Like, which way do you go?
Mhm.
And I feel like that's obviously a big problem in Richmond. It's not a problem because there's enough volume around for everybody that people do like to have an attorney. That's their priority contact. And some people, like us as a title company, we have an attorney on staff. So with that being said, it's like you get the best of both worlds, but you're also not paying the price of a full attorney.
Perfect. Okay. What are some things you might run into that we may never even be aware of, like maybe some issues with the title or anything like that, that you guys just kind of take care of for us?
Yeah. So I think right now, since COVID hit, let's put it in the last 3, 4 years perspective. Judgments are popping up like crazy because everything's so expensive nowadays. People aren't being able to pay for their debts and they're going into judgments or collections. These things are popping up. On our side, we're able to run that and grab them sometimes. Sometimes you guys are involved with that. The other big issues are release of old mortgages and liens. So as people know, like Mr. Cooper is a big player now, and they bought a ton of companies and all these banks that are going under right now. For that portion, it's the liens that are attached to those mortgage companies have to be sent somewhere, and tracking that down, I think, is the biggest difficulty for a lot of people. But once you can get it, it's a go. But for us to be able to do that behind the scenes is kind of why we have such a big staff and a lot of implementations we have in place to figure that out before we have to reach out to the agent and the client to kind of scare them to get things rolling.
So I know from closing on my own house pretty recently, we sign a lot of stuff and it feels pretty fast. What if I get something wrong? What happens? Are there anything that you guys do to, make sure that I don't make a mistake?
Yeah, so we do hundreds of closings each month. Some of them go fast, some of them go slow. It all depends on questions asked, different documentation throughout. If things are missed, obviously you're not required to get title insurance, and obviously there is an enhanced and a standard policy. With that being said, if you do get one of those policies, you are at least covered from a mishap happening. There are instances in like Chesterfield right now where people are getting recordings wrong. Unfortunately, that's something we would love to not happen, but counties and cities do. It is computer error as well nowadays.
Sure.
So I think it all depends too. I mean, we're here to explain every single document to you the best we can that we know how to. If there is a question throughout anything, we hope that buyer or the seller would stop us throughout. But it is our duty on our side to at least tell you, hey, these are the rules and guidelines. This is where you have to hit, and this is where it needs to go. And that's
Perfect.
why us and the mortgage company play a huge role in sitting there and making sure we're all on the same page.
Working with lenders, I know you guys work really closely with the lending teams throughout the process. Do you guys prefer to work with local lenders?
So yes, we always love a local lender. I think that is our biggest, cup of tea coming to it. When it's local, it's easy because they're here working with you.
Mhm.
If you're not local, you could be in California, it could be in Michigan. Like for instance, Rocket Mortgage is based out of Michigan, so they're running a few hours behind us. So it's always trying to call somebody that's not on the same time zone as you. You're trying to get things done, trying to get a closing package. You want an 8:30 closing, they're not until 9:30. So it varies like that. A local lender, so any of the ones in the area you can trust, it's easy to call them at any point in time. They're more personable, I would say, and they're easy to call. So when clients call them or have an issue, most of the time we have most of their cell phone numbers that we can reach out and be like, hey, this is this. But if you get a nationwide company or a big bank, you're going to get the 800 number. And then they're just going to funnel you throughout and you might not get the answers. So
Gotcha.
we always love a local lender before we go nationwide.
So local lenders, when it comes to crunch time, they're there. You can rely on them, and that's worth its weight in gold.
They are. And I think that's, the biggest thing for the hassle for the client too, because when it comes to us, they have to wire the funds.
Yeah.
And most nationwide companies, if you're not getting them in time, some are in California, 3 hours behind us. So we're gone at 5 and we're getting something at 8 p.m. And with that being said, how are you going to wire your funds that late in the day if you're not getting anything, a final figure from them until the next day? So
Yeah,
it makes it
absolutely.
challenging.
Chris, I get a lot of questions about title insurance. So I was wondering if you might just be able to tell us what are some things that title insurance protects consumers from?
Yeah, I think that's the biggest issue right now for a lot of these things. When title insurance comes, obviously we're in the modern age of a lot of electronic stuff being signed. Some lenders nowadays are doing hybrid closings, so half e-signed, half not. We're still notarizing in person, all the big important documents, but once it gets recorded, everything's done online. So you hit a button, it gets recorded into the county, and then they hit a button to make it finalized. It's very electronic. Things can go wrong. We know it happens. There are things here and there that do. But we do always recommend it. We don't force it on people. It is an additional fee, and that is paid through the closing cost of closing. However, it is a one-time fee. That one-time fee could save you hundreds of thousands of dollars in the long haul. And I think that's where, we're always like, hey, at least get standard. There is a standard, there is an enhanced policy, and I think that's where everybody's always like, well, which one do we choose? It's always cheaper just to get it done, but the enhanced covers big things. So standard and enhanced, they both do cover some of the same stuff. So old liens, old judgments, old mortgages that pop up, a lot of old satellite dishes that are still on houses. They used to be leased. So some of them where contracts aren't actually released on them. So at that point, they tie a lien to the property. So people don't realize these little things that do happen. A lot of things in the city of Richmond right now. It's like boundaries. So whose fence, whose property? Is that alleyway? Could I extend my gravel driveway back so I can make more parking spots? With that coming into play, that comes with easements, encroachments, anything like that. That's why in the city of Richmond we always request enhanced, because that's what enhanced covers. So your boundaries, your zonings, anything like that with building permits. If one wasn't filed, we can't do anything about it. So a lot of the people, when they're selling a home, if they buy it and it's square footage of a sunroom is put in there, but it was never a building permit part of it. Obviously, title insurance can't protect you from that because that was put in there not properly. If it was filed but filed improperly, that's when enhanced can cover you. I think the big thing right now, also for enhanced, so that covers you throughout the entire life. So home values right now have gone up since 2 years ago, probably in Richmond 35%, give or take.
Yeah, could be conservative.
So on that portion, the enhanced coverage carries it on more. So that goes with the value of your home. The standard insurance, when you get it, it stops from when you closed at the table. So that's what the appraised value was covers there. So let's just say you're in a $600,000 home, and some homes that are 600,000 are going for 900,000. So at that point, in that $300,000 gap, like title insurance with the enhanced policy would cover that $300,000 gap. The standard does not if you closed at that 600.
I see.
So that value difference is huge because if something were to go wrong in that property, you're not fully covered from anything like that. Obviously, homeowners insurance has things when it burns down or anything like that could happen. Title insurance, though, would cover you with those encroachments and all the bigness, the value of your property. Okay. The city of Richmond's not going to come in and say, "Hey, we're going to put a electrical pole right in the middle of your backyard," or something ridiculous with the alleyways and the trash cans and not blocking it. So we always recommend it, and people say even with new construction, like breaking it down from a resale, new construction, and investment to going forward. New construction, we don't know who owned that land before. Same thing with anything out going to like Powhatan or Goochland. There's 100 acres out there. There's 50 acres per property. Some people are like, oh, it got passed down, I'm selling it in an estate. Who else is in that estate that we don't know? Yeah. And that covers protecting them from anybody coming back and saying they own this property.
Okay. So enhanced title insurance is pretty comprehensive for any sort of claim on the land that could cause an issue for you down the road.
Exactly.
Awesome.
And the way I look at that is it's a couple $100 more. I said this is going to be your biggest investment you probably ever make. With that being said, does a couple $100 now make it a big investment for you in the future? So that's the way we always put it. But there's bigger questions with the client. We always say, hey, reach out to the settlement agent. Go through the process. What would fit you better?
Okay.
So
Chris, what if my clients are ready to close, but they're unfortunately going to be out of the area and they can't do an in-person closing?
Yeah, so this happens a lot actually. People like to call them snowbirds and fly down to Florida for the winter, and they wanted to sell their house here. So we also work with a notary service that's nationwide. If you're in Richmond and surrounding areas, you'll get one of us that will drive out to your house, or surrounding areas if you want to meet at a Starbucks or anything like that. We'll meet you there, sign your documents. It happens. If you want to go out of town, travel for vacation, just so happens you chose that closing date, we'll travel to you. We have a notary basically in any state. We can go to Puerto Rico, Hawaii, Alaska as well. If you are stationed outside, so military, you can do that as well as long as you go to an embassy. Wow. You can have a notary sign it. Or now we've had a thing called ROM, which is Remote Online Notary Systems. So they will face-to-face, Zoom, basically like a Zoom, and then notarize. You'll show your driver's license, show what you're doing, and they'll sign off on it now. So wow, it's come a long way. And I think that sets us apart because most people still don't want to they want you in front of them. And we're like, well, we hope we would trust somebody that's licensed to be able to do this and read you the documents. And, we're always on standby when it comes to that. Here's our number. Call us if you have questions at closing. So we're always happy to answer. So that's a big service people love.
That's awesome. So for first-time home buyers, they can close in person and see all the documents. But if you've got somewhere to be, you guys are still taken care of.
That's it. We'll always be there for them, no matter where they're at.
Perfect, Chris. I just wanted to say thanks so much for your time, and thanks for helping our clients better understand what you do behind the scenes.
Absolutely, and thank you for having me.
Absolutely.